Well, it took him long enough, but it seems like he's finally made up his mind. And for more reaction, let's speak with the director of the Women's Rights Network, Cathy Larkman. Cathy, welcome back. We had you in the studio, of course, on that historic Victory Day last Wednesday. Now it appears the Prime Minister has seen the light. Do you believe him? Or, I mean, from my point of view, he's had more positions on this than the Kama Sutra.
Yeah, it's extraordinary, isn't it, really? And, you know, it's good to build that golden bridge, really, so politicians can come and cross over that bridge and suddenly find out what a woman is. And, of course, many of us didn't need the clarity of the Supreme Court, although it was incredibly welcome for us, because we knew all along what a woman was, and we had to, you know, sit back and listen while Keir Starmer said that it was wrong to say that only women had a cervix and that 1% of women, in fact, had a penis. You know, startling things which we knew were falsehoods all along, and has needed the Supreme Court to tell him differently. But we're very glad that he's made this statement. You know, there's a lot of work to be done, and all politicians need to be really, really clear in relation to this. I noticed there's been matters discussed in Scottish Parliament today as well about not bringing back the gender recognition reform, and we're waiting down here in Wales as well for our own Welsh Government to sort of find their voices too. But you know, isn't it extraordinary, really? It's like the litmus test question for our time. And it doesn't just tell us, really, about the whole women's rights issue and whether politicians will stand up for women's rights, but whether they have the integrity or whether they will repeat a blatant lie and falsehood in front of the British public for fear of being attacked otherwise by extremists.
And Cathy, it's incredible that it takes the Supreme Court to make a Prime Minister make his mind up about something which a toddler can tell is true. But nevertheless, there we are. Do you, however, have any faith? The Holyrood today, the SNP have said they will also accept this, but we're learning as well that 28 NHS trusts across London are simply ignoring the rules. There's even a rebellion, it appears, from within the Labour Party on this. Do you have faith that despite the fact this is legally now precedented and set in cement, that people are just going to try and ignore it, that trans extremists will carry on it regardless?
Well, women who've been, you know, involved in this for at least the last decade will know how awful, how nasty, how toxic this has been. And it's come from one direction only. It's come towards the women who have dared assert their rights and stand up for their sex-based rights in law. It's been horrific. You know, J.K. Rowling said she could have papered her house with the rape and death threats she's received. You know, many women, and you're not just myself, but many women have attended sort of meetings and you know, various different events where we've had to sort of run the gauntlet of, you know, horrendous banners outside sort of calling for our death and destruction, to be quite frank, chanting, you know, saying some extraordinarily offensive things about us, wishing violence upon us. You know, we've seen this in the rallies at the weekend as well, haven't we, really, with those awful threats being issued. And we've sat in meetings where there have been baying mobs outside, banging on the windows and trying to get in. You know, I've been in many of those meetings myself. So the bravery of the women who brought this action before the Supreme Court for Women Scotland can't be, you know, overstated, really, as is the case for all the women's groups involved in this, including the Women's Rights Network that I represent. And to go back to sort of one of your questions there, Martin, you know, when you touched upon the NHS trusts, you know, vulnerable women have been put in hospital wards that have purportedly been single-sex hospital wards, and there have been men in them. You know, I'm a retired police officer. I've been fighting a long fight with the police service nationally, who've been determined to bring in opposite sex strip and intimate searching, and have sort of signed off on policies to do that. It's quite extraordinary, given you know, all that they say about being dedicated to dealing with violence against women and girls. So we shouldn't underestimate how much huge organisations have been prepared to sell off women's rights and go along with this. It's going to take a long time to pull all those policies out.
OK, thank you very much for joining us. Always a pleasure to have you on the show, and that's the director of the Women's Rights Network, Cathy Larkman. Thank you.